The deception ends here.
Time to come clean.
The deception ends here. The mystery unravels.
What's going on, everybody? Today we are going to explore the true free-to-play potential of our latest Denduo main DPS, Nefer. So here's my build for C0 Nefer using the not quite craftable catalyst, the R5 Black Mirror Lantern. From my calculations, it's roughly 85% as strong as her signature, which is honestly really good. So personally I would say it's totally fine to skip her signature and save your pulse for something else, even though her banner is actually pretty decent as it comes with 3 really useful limited 4-star weapons. Anyway, as for the artifacts, the basic set is obviously the Knight of the Sky, running EM, and crit damage for main stats. Do not use Denduo damage global on her, because 90% of her damage are considered Lunar Bloom damage, which doesn't scale on damage bonus at all. That's why she needs an EM global with double crit, which is a problem since it has the lowest drop rate in the entire game. I've been playing this game for 5 years and only got one of these. So yeah, before you pull Nefer, make sure you have got 4 Elysias ready to generate a global for her. By the way, if you do decide to go for her signature weapon, it's actually better to use EM circuit rather than crit damage, which basically makes her into the most painful title to build in the entire game. So please keep that in mind before pulling. Talent wise, prioritize on her elemental skill, as that's where most of her damage comes from. Next is the burst, which is pretty decent but not exactly worth crowning in my opinion. No need to upgrade her normal attack, as it's pretty much useless. So that's all about my build, which is basically what a free-to-play Nefer really looks like. Alright, so when it comes to her gameplay and mechanics, I would say she's quite similar to Skirt in a sense, since both rely on specific reactions to generate special resources on the field for buffs. The only difference is that Skirt is stuck with full Hydro Cryo team, whereas Nefer only needs Bloom to function without any strict restrictions on her teammates' elements. So yeah, that's a huge step up for the mechanics, or so it seems. Anyway, here's a simple breakdown of how to play Nefer. First of all, her main source of damage comes from her special charge attacks during her elemental skill, which consumes these bullets, and the only way to get them is by triggering Lunar Bloom, or just Bloom basically, since they work exactly the same way. So her gameplay is honestly very straightforward. Trigger Bloom to gather the bullets, then unload them during her skill with charge attack. And thanks to her passive giving more bullets per bloom, technically you just need 3 to 4 blooms per rotation, which is pretty nice. But honestly there's nothing to worry about, since we're always running Ino, which is always more than enough for Nefer. So far so good, right? Now moving on to her next important mechanics. The moment you activate her skill, all existing Tendo cores on the field will turn into special seeds, which work completely different than before as they can't be detonated at all. On top of that, any bloom you trigger afterwards will no longer produce the normal Dendo cores, but rather these special seeds as well. So yeah, in other words, she completely kills all the bloom reactions, the very thing that makes Dendo units fun, feasible, and unique to play. So yeah, I'm pretty disappointed with it honestly, because without bloom, what makes her different than playing her dual team? Going entirely damage? Anyway, back to those special seeds. Since they kill the entire reaction, you must be expecting something great in return, right? It turns out all they do is let Nefer assault them for a measly 100 EM and a better burst damage, and that's it. So honestly I see this passive as a straight up nerf to her potential and a team building, as these buffs are nowhere near strong enough to make out the loss of Hyper Bloom. I can't help but feel this was done just to make older units incompatible with the new units, to make sure we pull new suitable supports for her. Well, it's all business in the end, isn't it? By the way, technically you could disable this passive by not bringing any knockout units, but as expected, the damage loss is absolutely massive, bringing her down to the level of Alhadon, which is pretty weak in today's standard. But most importantly, without full Moon Sign, she has no special advantage over other units against knockout enemies, losing her biggest value of being a knockout DPS. So yeah, it's not exactly a good idea at all. And that concludes everything about her mechanics. Alright, moving on to her team building. While she doesn't strictly lock you into specific elements like Skirt does, her team options are still quite limited overall. First of all, you must bring a non-quiet teammate to activate her moon sign, otherwise she's pretty bad as mentioned earlier. So if you didn't pull Lauma, you are pretty much stuck with Aino for now. But honestly, that's not really a bad thing, since Aino is actually a really solid Hydro support, especially if you have her C1. Now secondly, as mentioned earlier, most of the damage counts as Lunar Bloom damage, which doesn't benefit from any damage bonus buff, most notably of Fulina, Yelan, and Natlan's score of hero. So her supports are limited to the EM buffers and dental resistant shredders, both of which are extremely rare, especially for free-to-play players. By the way, the 4-star instructor set is surprisingly one of the best buffs for Nefer for free-to-play, giving 120 EM just by triggering a reaction, which is better than Nefer's whole special seed gimmick, so make sure you bring a set on one of her teammates. Finally, you need a shooter or healer like any other team, which is actually a trouble for Nefer, since none of the healers can buff her damage, except Zhongli and C6 Diona, which are basically only available for all players. Of course, you could go for the dental healers with the Ub memories, but chances are it's already worn by someone else, like Lauma or Nahida. Alternatively, you could go for the Hydro healers with Silken Moon set, but if you didn't pull Lauma, you have to bring Aino, and she only uses that. So yeah, unless you have Zhongli or C6 Diona, there's no good answer to this at the moment. So in the end, there you have it. Her team building basically comes down to a combination of these characters, and the best ones are those who can cover multiple roles. So after narrowing down once again, there you go, the best team review. So much for the flexibility, am I right? Anyway, that's all to her team building in the current version. Now just before we jump into the team showcase, let's answer the most important question. Is Nefer actually viable without Lauma? Well, instead of going through all the buff details, let's just take a look at a side-by-side damage comparison. So yeah, compared to Nahida, it's a massive 30% damage difference, and that's not even factoring in Lauma's crit rate buff. So to be perfectly honest, if you didn't pull Lauma, I don't think you should go for Nefer. That said, for your benefits, I'm still going to show you her performance without Lauma by running it against this boss in the current Spiral Abyss, which is the only chamber that doesn't give you any Abyss buffs. After playing this team for a bit, but I have to be fair, this is so much worse than I ever expected, like unbelievably terrible. So many flaws piled on top of each other, and honestly I think she might be one of the weakest DPS we have seen in a very long time. First off is obviously the damage, in which I actually had trouble beating this boss even with 2 minutes left, which is supposed to be one of the easiest chamber in the Abyss. So yeah, I would say this team is way below average, especially considering this team already has 3 5-star units in it. Next up is her survivability, in which she's insanely fragile to the point that she can easily die in the blink of an eye, all because she can't move when holding a charge attack, turning her into a stationary punching bag for the enemies. The only way around this is by not holding charge attack button, and to learn how to dodge cancel after every charge attack, similar to how you play Fu Tao. Obviously that's insanely uncomfortable to play, and come on, it's already 2025, I can hardly bear with this kind of hustle. That's why I had to bring Zhongli instead of C6 Diona, sacrificing damage just to stay alive. Lastly, it feels like there's something off about her attack tracking. Although her AoE is actually pretty large, her attack tracking feels extremely short, almost like it's limited to melee range only, which is really weird. Take a look at this footage where the enemy is just slightly outside of her AoE, and she doesn't track on him. So yeah, all in all, I haven't seen any positive with this team yet. It's weak, clunky, and just straight out uncomfortable to play. Even more so if you don't have Nahida and Zhongli. On the other hand, I was expecting things to be completely different with Lauma, since she's such a strong support for Nefer. But the thing is, the only thing that gets better is the damage. Everything else, including the gameplay, rotation, AoE, tracking, etc., are exactly the same as before. She's still extremely fragile and very hard and clunky to play without Zhongli's protection. But most importantly, even with Lauma, her damage is still pretty average, definitely nowhere near the meta at all, as you can see just how long it takes to beat the Wilderness Hunt even with not quite advantage. So honestly at this point, I'm actually starting to regret pulling her for the first time ever, and that's just how disappointed I am. Anyway, I'll keep this footage running in the background, so you can see I'm not exaggerating about her at all. So finally, before ending this video, just from my experience, I think it's safe to say Nefer is a huge disappointment. Not only she's clunky and fragile, but her special set gimmick kills the one thing that made Stand fun in the first place, Bloom. Besides, even with Lauma, she's still very average in terms of damage output, so you can imagine her performance without her. So honestly, for free-to-play players, there's just no reason to pull her, even if you have Lauma, I'll say. Personally, I'm having more fun with Lauma's Hyper Bloom than this Green Italy damage. Anyway, that's my honest take on Nefer. If you got her already, I hope this helps you to get the most out of her. And if you're still deciding, well, maybe just save those Primogens for someone else. And that's all for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.